A birthday betrayal. When family forgets and fractures. It was supposed to be the perfect birthday dinner. After weeks of planning, I had mentally prepared myself for a night of laughter, shared stories, and the warmth of my family. My mother, Susan, had promised she'd put together a small gathering for me at my favorite restaurant. Nothing too fancy, just a casual celebration. That's how I liked it. Simple, with the people who knew me best. I arrived a few minutes early, hoping to help with any last-minute preparations. The restaurant was buzzing with the usual weekend crowd, waiters gliding past, the clinking of glasses, and the faint murmur of conversations. But something was off. I walked in and scanned the room, looking for my family, but there were no familiar faces, no table set for a birthday dinner. The host gave me a polite smile and led me to a booth in the corner, a place where no one was sitting. "Are you expecting anyone?" she asked. I gave a nervous chuckle, trying to mask the confusion and the sudden sinking feeling in my stomach. "Yes, my family. They should be here any minute." She nodded, but it was clear she wasn't expecting a crowd. As I sat down, I pulled out my phone to double-check the time. It was 7:15 p.m. The dinner was set for 7 o'clock. I was sure they wouldn't have forgotten, so I waited. Minutes passed, but no one showed up. I started to grow restless. I checked my phone again. A new notification popped up. A message from my mother. "We thought you'd be busy, so we decided to eat without you." I froze. The words stung more than I expected. There was a sense of disbelief as I read the message over and over, as if it might change. I felt the weight of disappointment sinking like a rock in my chest. But the shock wasn't over yet. Just as I was processing her words, another notification appeared. This time it was from my sister Emily. "Ate without you. Sorry." My hand trembled as I set the phone down. I felt a strange, hollow emptiness inside. How could they do this? How could they forget me on my own birthday? How could they make such a thoughtless decision as if I didn't matter? I stared at the empty restaurant table in front of me, the flickering candlelight casting a soft glow, but it only seemed to highlight the loneliness I felt in that moment. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. I couldn't believe what I was reading, but somehow I knew it was real. There were no words left in me. I didn't know what to say or how to respond. I simply closed the phone and stood up. I didn't care about the meal anymore. I didn't care about the celebration. I left the restaurant, and as I walked out, I could feel the heat of anger and sadness creeping up, battling each other inside of me. But what happened next, well, that was something I didn't expect. Something that would leave me questioning everything about my family and the relationships I had taken for granted. Days later, my phone buzzed, a call from my mother. My finger hovered over the screen, and for a moment I hesitated. Should I answer? Could I face them after what had happened? I decided to pick up. "Hello," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Why didn't you come back home?" my mother asked, her voice shaky. I couldn't respond immediately. How could I? What could I say after everything? But there was more. My sister's voice echoed in the background. "We didn't mean to hurt you," she said softly. We didn't think you'd care." Then it all came rushing back. The hurt, the confusion, the disbelief. But the twist, the thing I never saw coming. I couldn't have prepared for how everything would unfold in the next few days. The tears, the phone calls, the heartbreaking confessions. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. The words, "we didn't think you'd care," echoed in my mind, playing on repeat. "What do you mean you didn't think I'd care?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's my birthday. You're my family. How could you just forget about me like that?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. For a moment, I wondered if they were even hearing me. But then my mother's voice cracked. "I'm sorry," she said. "We didn't mean it. We thought you'd be busy with your friends or maybe working. You're always so caught up in everything else, and we didn't want to bother you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It wasn't just a mistake anymore. It was a misunderstanding, a complete misjudgment of who I was and how much this day meant to me. They didn't even see how much I had been looking forward to spending time with them. "Mom," I said, struggling to hold back the tears. "It's not about being busy, it's about showing up. It's about family. I'm not asking for a huge celebration, but I just wanted you to be there." That's all. To show you cared. My sister's voice cut in again. This time softer but still laced with guilt. We didn't think it would hurt you that much. We thought you'd understand. I mean, we always get so busy with our own lives. And we thought this year you wouldn't mind. At that moment, I realized they truly hadn't understood. They hadn't grasped just how important this day was for me, just how much I needed to feel seen, to feel valued. Instead, they had dismissed me, assuming I'd be fine without them. Maybe I don't understand, I replied, trying to make sense of it all. But I feel like this is something you should have known, that I wanted to be with you. Another silence fell. I could feel the weight of the conversation bearing down on me. My chest felt heavy, and every word that followed seemed to make it harder to breathe. Please come home, my mother said quietly. We'll make it right, I promise. We'll do something special for you. We can't undo what happened, but we'll try to make it up to you. I wasn't sure what to say. Part of me wanted to just hang up, to walk away from it all. But another part of me, the part that still longed for the warmth of family, wanted to believe them. I don't know, I murmured. I need some time to think. And with that I ended the call. Days passed, but the distance between us felt like an ocean. I couldn't stop replaying everything in my mind. What had gone wrong? Why had I always been the one to make the effort, only to be let down when I needed it most? But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it wasn't just about the dinner. It wasn't just about one night or one mistake. There was something deeper at play, something I hadn't wanted to face until now. And that's when it hit me. There had been something unspoken between us all for years. Something buried beneath the surface that had festered and grown over time. What was I really walking into when I agreed to go back? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. It wasn't just the birthday dinner anymore. It was the way my family had been drifting apart for years, but none of us had said anything out loud. We just kept pretending everything was fine, as if ignoring the cracks would somehow make them disappear. But now, with that one hurtful moment, it all felt so much clearer. I felt like I was staring into a mirror, and the reflection staring back at me wasn't the person I thought I knew. I spent the next few days in a fog, unsure of what to do. I replayed that conversation with my mom and sister over and over. Each time it felt more and more like a broken record, a part of the same pattern. They always meant well, but it was like they were blind to how I was feeling. I had given them all the signs, but they hadn't seen it. Or maybe they just didn't care enough to look. By the time the weekend rolled around, I had made my decision. I called my mom and told her I would come over. I needed closure, but I wasn't going in with the hope of everything magically being fixed. No, I was going in to face the truth, whatever that truth was. When I arrived at my parents' house, the tension in the air was almost palpable. The house was quiet, too quiet. My mom and sister were sitting at the kitchen table, their eyes flicking nervously to the door as I walked in. They looked guilty, but not sorry enough to have truly understood the weight of what they had done. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral, but even I could hear the hurt in it. Mom stood up first, her arms open as if she were trying to comfort me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was all too late for that. I stepped back, not wanting to be embraced just yet. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice soft, vulnerable even. I nodded, pulling out a chair and sitting down. My sister didn't say anything. She just stared at her hands, the guilt eating away at her from the inside. "I'm sorry," my mother began. "I know I hurt you. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I thought you'd be okay, that you wouldn't care if we went ahead and ate. But I was wrong. I should have waited for you. I should have made more of an effort." I felt my heart tighten. It wasn't enough to hear her say sorry. It wasn't enough to fix the hole that had been left in my chest. I had wanted more than just words. I wanted them to show me they understood why it mattered. "I don't think you do understand, Mom," I replied, my voice trembling slightly. "It's not just about the dinner. It's about the fact that I've been invisible for so long. That no one seems to notice when I'm struggling, when I need help, when I need support. It's like I'm just here. Like I'm not even part of this family sometimes." Mom's face twisted with pain, as if my words had pierced her. And for a second I wondered if she had finally heard me. But then my sister spoke up, her voice barely audible. "We just didn't think you'd care," she repeated, her words laced with confusion and regret. We thought maybe you wouldn't want to spend your birthday with us. You're always so busy, always doing something. We didn't want to bother you." I shook my head, the frustration bubbling up inside me. It's not about being busy, it's about making me feel like I matter. Every year I make the effort to be there for everyone. To show up even when it's hard. But when it's my turn, you guys can't even be bothered to show up. The room fell into a heavy silence. I could see my mother's eyes starting to well up with tears. And my sister was biting her lip, fighting back her own emotions. But this wasn't about tears or apologies anymore. This was about something deeper that needed to be addressed. "I don't want to fight," I said, feeling exhausted. "I just need you to understand why this hurts so much. I'm tired of feeling like I'm always the one left behind." I waited for them to say something, anything to show that they truly got it. But instead, it was my mother who broke the silence. "We failed you, haven't we?" she whispered. And that was it. The dam broke. It wasn't just about the dinner or the birthday or the years of neglect. It was about something more. Something I hadn't realized until that moment. It wasn't just that they had let me down. It was that I had let myself down by not standing up for what I needed from them, by not expecting more. But just when I thought I was about to get the answers I had been looking for, something happened that I didn't expect. A confession that would change everything. The room remained quiet. The weight of my mother's words hanging in the air like a heavy cloud. It felt like we had reached a breaking point, like something was about to shift. Mom wiped her eyes, her hand trembling slightly as she tried to compose herself. "I know I haven't been there for you the way I should have," she said. "But I didn't realize how much it hurt you. I didn't realize that you felt invisible all these years." I sat in silence, letting her words sink in. It wasn't that I had expected her to fix everything in an instant. But hearing her acknowledge the truth felt like a small piece of the puzzle finally falling into place. Still, it wasn't enough to heal the wound, not yet. But then my sister spoke up. Her voice shaky but determined. "I don't know if I can make it right," she said, looking directly at me. "But I know I've been part of this too. I've taken you for granted. Always thinking you'd be fine on your own. Always assuming you didn't need us." She paused, her eyes brimming with guilt. And I was wrong. For the first time in a long while, I felt like they were finally starting to see me. Not just as the person who always showed up for everyone, but as someone who deserved to be seen, loved, and valued in return. But before I could respond, something strange happened. The front door opened with a creak, and we all turned, startled. My father, David, walked in, looking slightly out of breath, as if he had just come from a long day at work. He froze when he saw us sitting there, the tension thick in the room. "What's going on?" he asked, his eyes darting from me to my mother and sister. It was clear that he had no idea what had been happening. For a moment I wondered if he even cared. The years of distance between us felt like a wall I couldn't break down. But my mother stood up quickly, rushing to explain. "We were just talking," she said, her voice soft but strained. "About everything." My father raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean, everything?" I could feel the anger rising within me again. "You weren't here," I said, my voice shaking. "You didn't even notice, did you? You didn't even care. I've been invisible to this family for so long. And you never once stopped to ask how I was doing." My father's face faltered. For a moment I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Was it guilt? Regret? But it disappeared almost as quickly as it appeared. I didn't know," he muttered, rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly. "I thought you were fine. You've always been fine." I stared at him, the weight of years of neglect pressing down on me. The man who had always seemed so distant, so absorbed in his work, had never once bothered to check on me. I could feel the anger rising in my chest, but I kept it in check for now. "You've been assuming that, haven't you?" I said, my voice low and steady. "You've been assuming I was fine because I never asked for anything. But it's not about asking, it's about showing up. It's about being present." There was a long silence. My father didn't know how to respond. In that moment, I saw the cracks in the foundation of our family, and I realized that no amount of apologies or explanations could fix it. The damage had been done over years of neglect, and it was going to take more than a few words to heal the wounds. But there was something that shifted in that room. Something that hadn't been there before. The three of them, my mother, my sister, and even my father, finally understood something they hadn't understood before. I wasn't just a part of the family by default. I was a person who deserved attention, love, and care. I wasn't invisible anymore. As I sat there, the emotions swirled within me. I felt anger, pain, relief, and even a strange sense of closure. But there was still one question that lingered in the back of my mind. Could things really change? Could we fix this? Or had the damage been done too long ago? Before I could ask myself any more questions, my father surprised me. He took a deep breath, his face softening as he stepped toward me. "Maybe we've all taken you for granted," he said quietly. "Maybe it's time we stop pretending everything's okay and start doing better." I didn't know what to say to that. I wanted to believe him, to believe that things could get better. But a part of me knew that it wasn't just words that would change things. It would take actions, consistency, and effort. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like there was hope. There was a chance. And as I left my parents' house that day, I knew that the real work was just beginning. But at least we were finally acknowledging the truth. At least we were finally ready to face it. The next few days were a blur. I didn't hear from my parents. I didn't hear from my sister. Part of me was afraid that the silence was a sign of things falling apart again. But then, just when I started to doubt everything, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my mom. "Can we meet? We want to talk." My heart skipped a beat. The old me would have resisted, would have shut myself off completely. But this time I didn't hesitate. I wanted to believe we could start fresh. I wanted to believe that this could be the turning point. When I arrived at the cafe where we agreed to meet, I saw them sitting at a corner table. My mother, my father, and my sister. Their faces were weary, but there was something different in their eyes, something that hadn't been there before. Vulnerability, a willingness to be honest with each other. "We've been thinking," my father began, his voice steady but low, "about everything we've been through, and about what we need to do to make it right." My mother reached out, her hand gently brushing mine. "We can't change the past, but we can change how we move forward. We're ready to put in the effort, to do whatever it takes to rebuild." I looked at each of them, my emotions swirling. I wasn't sure if I was ready to forgive, but in that moment I realized something. The road to healing wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't happen overnight. But if they were willing to try, to make real changes, maybe I could too. "Okay," I said, my voice soft but firm. "I'm willing to try. But it won't be easy. We have a lot to work through." They nodded, understanding the weight of my words. The journey ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges and setbacks. But one thing was clear. We were no longer running from the truth. We were facing it head-on together. As I left the cafe that day, a strange sense of peace settled over me. I knew it wasn't going to be a perfect resolution. There would be bumps along the way, moments where it felt like everything might fall apart again. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of the future. Because despite everything, I believed that we could rebuild, we could heal, and maybe, just maybe, we could finally be the family we had always longed to be. As the days turned into weeks, the cracks in our family slowly began to heal. We had difficult conversations, some of which left us all in tears, but we never gave up. It wasn't easy, and there were still moments of doubt. But little by little, we rebuilt the trust that had been shattered over time. I realized that forgiveness wasn't a single moment. It was a process. And while things might never go back to the way they were, we had created something stronger, something built on honesty and effort. For the first time in years, we truly felt like a family again. And that, in the end, was enough. What do you think? Can this family truly rebuild after everything they've been through? Or is the damage too deep to fix? Have any of you ever experienced something similar in your own lives? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more content just like this.